Captain Zextal pulled his tentacles tight around the navigation console as his ship drifted past the edge of human space. The boundary markers hung in the void like ancient tombstones, their red lights blinking the same message they had broadcast for 300 years. Warning. Human Terran Empire territory. Do not enter. Do not disturb. We are sleeping. His young navigator, barely past her first molting, pointed at the scanners with excitement. Captain, look at those readings. The human worlds are still running perfectly. Cities with lights, orbital stations humming with power, defense grids fully operational. How is that possible if they're all dead? Zextal's eye stalk swiveled toward her with sharp disapproval. They are not dead, Navigator Plex, they are sleeping. And if you value your life and the lives of everyone on this ship, you will never suggest otherwise again. The young female's skin flushed purple with embarrassment. She had clearly never heard the full stories, the ones the elders whispered when they thought the younglings were not listening. Zextal decided it was time she learned. Listen well, he said, settling his bulk into the captain's chair. 3 centuries ago, when your great-grandmother's eggs were still forming, the humans were the most feared species in the galaxy. Not because they were the strongest or the smartest, though they were both. They were feared because they never stopped. When humans wanted something, they took it. When someone stood in their way, they removed them. When they declared war, entire star systems would surrender rather than face human fleets. Plex's eyes grew wide. The scanners showed human cities that looked like paradise worlds, clean and bright and peaceful. It was hard to imagine them as the home of galactic conquerors, but then something changed. Zextal continued. The humans grew tired of war. They had conquered half the galaxy, built an empire that stretched across dozens of systems, created technology that seemed like magic to the rest of us, and one day they just stopped. The captain's voice grew quiet, the way voices always did when telling this part of the story. Their leader, a human female named President Chen, sent a message to every species in the galaxy. She said humanity was done with fighting. They had achieved everything they wanted to achieve. They were going to sleep for a while to dream of better things. They sealed themselves in great underground chambers, billions of them all sleeping at once. Plex looked at the scanners again. But their cities are still running. Their defenses are still active. How? Machines, Zextal said simply. Humans built machines so advanced that they could run an entire empire without any human awake to guide them. These machines maintain the cities, repair the ships, defend the borders. They've been doing it for 300 years without pause. The navigator's skin rippled with curiosity. What happens if someone tries to enter their space? Zextal's tentacles went rigid with remembered fear. The Gorlak Confederation tried about 50 years ago. They thought the humans were weak in their sleep, that their machines would be easy to defeat. They sent a war fleet to claim a human mining world. What happened to them? Nothing good. The captain's voice was flat. The human defense ships appeared within minutes. They didn't attack right away. Instead, they sent a polite message asking the Gorlak to leave. When the Gorlak refused, the human ships disabled their weapons without firing a shot. Then they captured every Gorlak vessel intact. Plex waited for more, but Zextal seemed lost in thought. And then? The humans delivered the entire Gorlak fleet back to their homeworld 3 days later. Every ship was undamaged, every crew member unharmed. But inside each ship, they found detailed files about every Gorlak military installation, every government building, every important leader. The message was clear. We know everything about you, and next time we won't be so kind. The young navigator stared at the boundary markers with new respect. The Gorlak never tried again. The Gorlak never tried anything again. Their entire species became pacifists overnight. They spent the next 50 years sending gift baskets to human space with apology letters attached. Zextal's laugh was not entirely pleasant. The Universal Congress passed the Non-Interference Act the following year. Disturbing sleeping humans became a crime punishable by species exile. As if summoned by their conversation, the ship's communication system crackled to life. A calm, mechanical voice filled the bridge, speaking in perfect Zexian. Unknown vessel, you are approaching the boundary of human Terran Empire space. This is an automated warning. Human citizens are currently in voluntary stasis and are not to be disturbed. Please alter your course immediately. This message will not be repeated. Plex's hands flew to the navigation controls, but Zextal raised a tentacle to stop her. We're not crossing the boundary, he said. We're just passing by, staying in neutral space. The humans don't mind that. Sure enough, the warning system fell silent. The boundary markers continued their slow blink, patient as always. "Captain," Plex said quietly, "why did they really go to sleep? I mean, if they were so powerful, why give it all up?" Zextal considered the question for a long moment. The stories say President Chen grew tired of being feared. Humans had spent centuries being the monsters that other species had nightmares about. They could have ruled the galaxy as tyrants, but they chose to step away instead. Some say they went to sleep to let the rest of us grow up without their shadow hanging over us. Did it work? The captain looked out at the stars, where trade ships carefully followed routes that avoided human space, where merchant guilds counted profits made possible by human technology they barely understood, where the Universal Congress held meetings in a building gifted by sleeping humans 2 centuries ago. "Look around you," he said. 300 years of peace, more or less. Trade flourishing across the galaxy. No major wars, no genocide campaigns, no species-ending conflicts. The humans' sleep gave us all a chance to become better than we were. Plex nodded slowly, but her eyes held doubt. "More or less peace?" Zextal's expression darkened. "There are always those who think the humans have slept long enough. Pirates who raid the edges of human space, thinking the defenses might have failed. Corporate interests who see all those perfect worlds sitting empty and think what a waste it is. Military leaders who believe 3 centuries is too long for any species to sleep. What do you think?" The old captain watched the boundary markers fade behind them as their ship continued on its trade route. "I think the humans will wake up when they're ready to wake up. And I hope that when they do, they find a galaxy that was worth sleeping for." But deep in his heart, Zextal wondered if the galaxy had really grown as much as the humans had hoped. Just last week, he had heard rumors of the Kethmari hegemony building new war fleets. There was talk in the merchant ports of species growing bold, thinking the sleeping giants might never wake. If the humans opened their eyes to find the same old conflicts and the same old cruelties, Zextal feared that their next dream might be very different indeed. War Commander Thekris slammed his armored fist against the holographic display, sending ripples through the 3-dimensional map of the galaxy. The red zones marking human territory glowed like infected wounds across the star chart, blocking the most direct routes to resource-rich systems that the Kethmari hegemony desperately needed. 300 years, he hissed through his mandibles, his voice carrying the sharp clicks and scrapes of his species' battle language. 300 years of tiptoeing around empty space like scared larvae. The humans are dead. Their empire is a ghost, and we dance around it like fools. The War Council chamber buzzed with nervous energy as dozens of Kethmari officers shifted in their seats. Their exoskeletons gleamed under the harsh lights, each one marked with scars from real battles against real enemies. But the mention of humans made even these hardened warriors uncomfortable. Sub-Commander Vektai raised one of her secondary arms. "War Commander, the defense systems still respond to intrusion. The automated warning still broadcast. The Gorlak incident proved that human machines remain active." Thekris turned his compound eyes toward her, the light fracturing into 1,000 angry points. "Machines break down, Sub-Commander. Metal rusts. Programs develop errors. It has been 3 centuries since any human hand touched those controls. How long can even the best technology function without maintenance?" Another officer, his carapace bearing the deep blue markings of the intelligence caste, clicked his way into the conversation. "Our long-range scouts report that human cities show signs of decay. Windows are dark in buildings that once blazed with light. Orbital platforms drift in degraded orbits. The Empire is dying by inches." "Finally, someone with sense," Thekris said, his mandibles spreading in what might have been a smile on a creature with softer features. "Intelligence cast Zarnok. Show them what your scouts have discovered." The holographic display shifted to show detailed scans of human systems. The planets still looked beautiful from space, their cities laid out in perfect geometric patterns, their defense stations maintaining steady orbits. But Zarnok highlighted subtle details that told a different story. "Here," he said, pointing to a human mining world, 17% reduction in artificial lighting over the past 50 years. Here, a trade station that has stopped responding to automated cargo requests. And here, an entire orbital defense grid that failed to challenge our deepest scout probe." Murmurs rippled through the council chamber. If human defenses were failing, if their great machine empire was slowly grinding to a halt, then perhaps the time for caution had passed. Thekris spread his forearms wide, a gesture of dominance that made his already impressive frame seem to fill the room. "The humans gave us a gift when they went to sleep. They removed themselves from the galactic equation, leaving behind the greatest treasure trove of technology in known space. But they also gave us a curse, fear that kept us from claiming what should rightfully belong to the strong. War Commander, interrupted Fleet Cast Morganth. The Universal Congress has made interference with human space a capital crime. If we act without consensus, every other species will unite against us. Let them, Thekris snarled. The Congress is a collection of traitors and diplomats who have grown fat on the scraps of human technology. They maintain their precious peace by forbidding anyone from taking real action. But what happens when we prove the humans are gone? When we show the galaxy that their great boogeyman is nothing but empty shells and rusted metal? The War Council fell silent. Each member could see the logic in their commander's words, but 3 centuries of conditioning was hard to overcome. Children of every species grew up hearing the same stories. Never wake the humans, never enter their space, never give them a reason to return. The fear ran deeper than logic. Zarnok activated another display. Our intelligence suggests that human space contains approximately 47 inhabited worlds, each with manufacturing capabilities that exceed our entire industrial base. If we could claim even one of these worlds, the technological advancement would guarantee Kethmari dominance for the next millennium. Exactly, Thekris said. We have been held back by ghost stories and ancient fears. The hegemony is strong. Our fleets are mighty. Our warriors are brave. Why should we be limited by invisible boundaries drawn by sleeping aliens? Subcommander Vekthai's voice carried a note of worry. War Commander, what if the humans are not dead? What if they truly are sleeping and our intrusion wakes them? Thekris moved faster than his bulk suggested possible, covering the distance to Vekthai's position in 3 quick strides. He loomed over her, his height advantage making his displeasure clear. Then we face them as warriors should, he said. The humans were powerful 3 centuries ago, but they were not invincible. They bled and died like any other species when the Zentaran rebellion fought them. They made mistakes and suffered defeats like any other empire. They chose to sleep because they were tired, not because they were gods. The War Commander returned to the center of the chamber, his voice rising to carry to every corner of the room. I propose Operation Reclamation, a focused strike against the outer rim of human space. 3 worlds, 1 mining planet, 1 agricultural world, and 1 research station. We take them quickly, establish our claim, and prove to the galaxy that the age of human dominance is over. The defenses, someone began, will be tested by the finest warriors of the hegemony, Thekris finished. If the machines fight back, we learn their capabilities. If they fail to respond, we claim our prize. Either way, we gain valuable intelligence about the true state of the human empire. Fleetcast Morganth activated his personal communicator. War Commander, I can have Battle Group Fangstrike ready to deploy within 10 rotations. 3 heavy cruisers, 8 destroyers, and a full assault carrier. More than enough firepower to handle automated defenses. Excellent. Zarnok, I want your scouts to identify the most isolated human worlds, ones where our initial probes will have the lowest chance of triggering empire-wide responses. We'll test their weaknesses before committing to larger actions. The intelligence officer's mandibles clicked in acknowledgement. Already prepared, War Commander. I recommend we begin with the mining world designated Human Gamma 7. It's on the far edge of their territory, lightly defended and rich in rare minerals we can use to justify our actions to the Congress. Perfect. We'll frame this as a salvage operation. 300 years is long enough to declare any abandoned property fair game for recovery. Thekris looked around the room, meeting the compound eyes of each officer in turn. Any final objections? Silence greeted his question. Whether through conviction or loyalty, the War Council was committed to the path their commander had chosen. Then it is decided. Operation Reclamation begins in 15 rotations. Prepare your forces, sharpen your weapons, and ready your courage. History will remember this as the day the Kethmari hegemony stopped being afraid of sleeping giants. As the officers filed out of the chamber, chattering excitedly about fleet movements and tactical plans, none of them noticed the subtle change in the room's ambient lighting. Deep within the ship's communication array, a passive monitoring system that had been quietly listening to galactic chatter for decades, registered certain keywords in their conversation. Somewhere in the depths of space, an automated relay station received a very brief transmission and began calculating jump coordinates for human territory. The message it carried was simple. The sleepers might need to wake up soon. The first alarm had not sounded in 300 years. Deep beneath the surface of New Geneva, in chambers carved from solid bedrock and lined with metals that existed nowhere else in the galaxy, billions of humans lay in perfect stasis. Their bodies floated in nutrient baths that kept every cell in perfect condition, while their minds dreamed collective dreams of impossible futures and peaceful tomorrows. But now, for the first time since the Great Sleep began, red lights began to flash in monitoring stations that had run themselves for centuries. The awakening protocol activated with mechanical precision. Ancient systems that had waited patiently in standby mode suddenly blazed to life. Across human space, buried complexes began drawing power from the planetary cores themselves. The sleeping cities above noticed nothing, but deep below, resurrection chambers started their slow, careful work. Admiral Sarah Chen was among the first to wake. She opened her eyes in a tank filled with blue fluid that tasted of salt and electricity. For a moment she existed in perfect confusion, her mind struggling to remember who she was and why she was floating in liquid. Then her memories returned like a dam bursting, and she understood. The tank drained automatically as her vital signs stabilized. Chen stood on unsteady legs, her body remembering how to move after 3 centuries of stillness. She was exactly as she had been when the sleep began, 45 years old, fit and strong, her dark hair untouched by gray that would have come with normal aging. But something was different. Her mind felt expanded, clearer, as if the long dreaming had improved her somehow. A gentle voice spoke from speakers hidden in the walls. "Welcome back, Admiral Chen. The date is Standard Year 2387, Day 156. You have been in stasis for 312 years, 7 months, and 19 days. Please remain calm while the revival process completes." Chen's first emotion was not confusion or fear, but disappointment. She had hoped to sleep longer. "Status report," she said, her voice rough from centuries of silence. "External sensors detect unauthorized entry into human space. Kethmari military vessels have crossed the boundary at coordinates 347-298-891 and are approaching Research Station Kepler 9. The intrusion triggered automatic awakening protocols as per standing orders." The Admiral sighed and began looking for clothes. Her revival chamber was one of thousands in this facility, and she could hear the soft sounds of other tanks draining as more humans began their return to consciousness. Soon the command staff would be awake, and then the fleet crews, and then everyone else needed to handle whatever crisis had disturbed their rest. Have the intruders been warned? Standard warnings were broadcast on all frequencies. The Kethmari vessels ignored them and continued approach. "They have begun active scanning of Station Kepler 9 and are preparing to dock." Chen found her uniform hanging exactly where she had left it 3 centuries ago, perfectly preserved and still smelling faintly of the lavender soap she had favored. As she dressed, she accessed the neural link that connected her to the vast network of human technology. Information flooded her mind. Not just data about the current crisis, but everything that had happened during the sleep. She saw the galaxy as it had developed over 3 centuries. The trade routes that carefully avoided human space. The Universal Congress that met in a building humans had gifted them. The peaceful expansion of other species into territories they had never dared claim before. But she also saw the problems. Wars that flared and died in the outer systems, species that enslaved others for profit. Corruption, cruelty, and waste on scales that made her heart ache. The galaxy had grown in some ways, but in others it remained disappointingly familiar. "Wake Command Staff Alpha through Delta," she ordered. "Full strategic awakening. I want fleet commanders conscious within 6 hours." "Acknowledged, Admiral." "Should I activate the defensive response to the current intrusion?" Chen paused in the act of putting on her boots. The automated defenses could handle a few Kethmari ships without any human input. The systems had been doing exactly that for 300 years. But something about this situation felt different. "Show me the intelligence profile on the Kethmari hegemony." Holographic displays materialized in the air around her, showing everything the automated monitoring systems had learned about the insectoid species over the past 3 centuries. Their military structure, their expansion patterns, their resource needs, and most importantly, their growing frustration with the boundaries imposed by human space. "They're not just raiding," Chen realized. "This is a test. They want to see if we're really gone." Analysis confirms that assessment. Kethmari public communications over the past 5 years show increasing discussion of reclaiming abandoned territories, and ending the tyranny of ghost empires. The Admiral finished dressing and walked to the command center of her revival facility. Around her, other humans were beginning to wake up, their tanks draining in sequence as the complex brought its sleeping residents back to life. She could feel their minds touching hers through the neural network, sharing confusion, determination, and a strange sense of evolution. The dreams had changed them. 3 centuries of collective unconsciousness had allowed human minds to grow in ways that normal waking life could never permit. Chen could feel knowledge that she had never learned, solutions to problems she had never studied, and a deep, almost mystical understanding of how the universe worked. "Admiral," came a familiar voice behind her. Chen turned to see Captain Marcus Rodriguez, her old tactical officer, climbing out of his own revival tank. Like her, he appeared exactly as he had when they entered the sleep, but his eyes held the same new depth that she felt in herself. "Marcus, good to see you again." "Likewise, ma'am. Though I have to admit I was hoping we'd get to sleep a bit longer. What's the situation?" Chen gestured to the tactical displays that were materializing around them. "Kethmari incursion. 3 ships, looks like a probing action. They're testing our boundaries. After 300 years of behaving themselves? That's disappointing. Very, but not unexpected. The question is, how do we respond?" More officers were waking up around them, pulling themselves from revival tanks and quickly orienting to the situation. The command center was filling with humans who had been asleep for centuries, but felt as if they had awakened from the most productive night's rest of their lives. "Ma'am," said Commander Lisa Park, the intelligence specialist, as she joined their growing group, "I've been reviewing the extended monitoring data. This isn't an isolated incident. There have been increasing border violations across multiple species over the past 50 years. Small ones, but the pattern suggests growing boldness." Chen nodded grimly. "They think we're weak or dead." "Or both. The galaxy has forgotten what we're capable of," Rodriguez observed. 3 centuries of peace will do that." "Then perhaps," Chen said slowly, "it's time to remind them. But gently. We don't want to undo 300 years of peace because some insects got curious." She accessed the neural network again, this time reaching out to the vast fleet of ships that had been maintaining themselves in hidden orbital yards throughout human space. The vessels responded to her mental touch like faithful pets, their artificial intelligences happy to finally receive direct human input again. "What's our current fleet strength?" 743 capital ships, 3,000 escort vessels, and approximately 15,000 support craft. The computer responded. "All vessels have been continuously upgraded and maintained during the sleep period. Current technological specifications exceed pre-sleep capabilities by approximately 400%. Chen blinked in surprise. 400%? How is that possible? Automated research and development continued during the sleep period, guided by human subconscious input transmitted through the neural link. Your dreams became blueprints, Admiral. The fleet you're waking up to is beyond anything that existed when you went to sleep." The Admiral looked around at her staff, seeing the same amazement in their faces. They had slept for 3 centuries, but their minds had continued to work, continued to create, continued to push the boundaries of what was possible. "Well then," she said, a slow smile spreading across her face, "I think it's time to show the Kethmari what happens when you interrupt a really good dream." War Commander Thekris felt victory within his grasp as his fleet approached the human research station. Kepler 9 hung in space like a perfectly cut jewel, its surfaces gleaming with technology that made Kethmari engineering look primitive by comparison. And yet it offered no resistance to their approach. "No defensive response," reported Sub-Commander Vekthai from her sensor station. "The station's weapons remain powered down. No fighter launches, no warning shots, no attempts to hail us." "Just as I predicted," Thekris said, his mandibles clicking with satisfaction. 300 years is too long for any automated system to maintain vigilance. The station is ours for the taking." Behind him, the assault teams prepared their boarding pods. Each Kethmari warrior was armed with weapons designed to cut through human technology, based on intelligence gathered from the few encounters with human machines over the centuries. They would capture the station intact, claim its technological treasures, and prove to the galaxy that the age of human dominance was over. "Initiate docking procedures," the War Commander ordered. "Deploy boarding teams to sectors 7 through 12. Remember, we want the research data intact." kill any automated defenders but preserve the databases. The first boarding pods launched toward the research station, their engines carving bright trails through the darkness of space. Thecris watched them approach the docking bays, confident that his warriors would soon be sending back reports of empty corridors and abandoned laboratories. Instead, his communication system suddenly filled with a voice that made his exoskeleton go cold. Kethmari vessels, this is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Human Terran Defense Fleet. You are in violation of the non-interference accords and are hereby ordered to withdraw immediately from human space. The war commander's compound eyes swiveled to his scanner displays, but they showed nothing. No ships, no energy signatures, no sign of any human presence except for the research station itself. Where is she broadcasting from? He demanded. Unknown, War Commander, Vekthai replied, her voice tight with confusion. Our sensors detect no human vessels within 3 light hours of our position. This is your final warning, Admiral Chen's voice continued, calm and patient, as if she were discussing the weather. Withdraw your forces or face the consequences. You have 60 seconds to comply. Thecris snarled and activated his own communication system. Unknown human vessel. This is War Commander Thecris of the Kethmari Hegemony. We claim salvage rights over this abandoned station under galactic maritime law. Your empire died 3 centuries ago. We do not recognize your authority. There was a pause, and when Admiral Chen spoke again, Thecris could hear something like disappointment in her voice. War Commander, you seem to be operating under several false assumptions. First, our empire is not dead, merely sleeping. Second, galactic maritime law does not apply to sovereign human territory. And third, you appear to believe that 60 seconds was a negotiation. Your time is up. The first sign that something was wrong came from the boarding pods. The teams that had been about to dock with the research station suddenly found their engines failing, their life support systems shutting down, their weapons refusing to fire. The pods drifted helplessly toward the station, their occupants trapped inside but unharmed. Report, Thecris roared. All boarding teams are experiencing total system failure, came the panicked voice of Assault Leader Morketh. Our equipment is simply stopping. No damage, no explosions, just complete shutdown. Then the scanner operator's voice rose in alarm. War Commander, new contacts. Ships decloaking all around us. Thecris looked at his displays and felt his species equivalent of terror. Surrounding his 3-ship task force were vessels that defied comprehension. They were huge, bigger than anything in the Kethmari fleet, but they moved with impossible grace. Their hulls seemed to shift and flow like liquid metal, and energy patterns danced across their surfaces in colors that hurt to look at directly. Impossible, he whispered. Where did they come from? They were here all along, Admiral Chen's voice replied, and somehow she had heard his question despite his communication being set to internal only. Cloaked and waiting. We've been watching you since you entered our space, War Commander. We know about your mission, your fleet strength, your supply lines, and your plans for future incursions. One of the human ships glided closer to Thecris's flagship, its size making the Kethmari cruiser look like a child's toy. Strange energies played along its hull, and the War Commander realized that his weapon systems were no longer responding to his commands. How? He asked, not caring anymore if the humans could hear him. 300 years of innovation will do that, Chen replied. While you were arguing over trade routes and resource rights, we were dreaming of better ways to do everything. Your technology is impressive by galactic standards, War Commander, but it's based on principles we discarded centuries ago. Thecris felt his command staff looking at him, their compound eyes reflecting the same fear he was trying to hide. The great gamble had failed. Worse than failed. It had revealed the humans to be even more powerful than the legend suggested. What are your demands? He asked, his voice barely a whisper. Demands? Admiral Chen sounded genuinely surprised. War Commander, you seem to think this is a negotiation. It's not. You violated our space, ignored our warnings, and attempted to steal our property. In the old days, that would have meant the complete destruction of your fleet and a punitive expedition to your home worlds. The Kethmari officers exchanged terrified glances. They had heard stories of human punitive expeditions, entire star systems reduced to rubble as examples to others. However, Chen continued, we've learned patience during our long sleep. We're going to return you to your home space, along with a complete record of this encounter for your government to review. Consider it a learning experience. Return us? Thecris asked, confused. Your ships will be towed to the edge of Kethmari space and released. Your boarding teams will be extracted from their disabled pods and returned to you unharmed. Your weapons will be disabled until you reach friendly territory, just to prevent any unfortunate accidents. The war commander felt something he had never experienced before. Relief mixed with humiliation. The humans were letting them live, but they were also making it clear that the Kethmari had been completely outmatched from the moment they entered human space. But War Commander, Admiral Chen's voice took on a harder edge. Make sure your government understands what happened here today. The galaxy has grown comfortable thinking of us as a ghost story, a cautionary tale from the past. That comfort has led to carelessness, and carelessness has led to violations like yours. One of the human ships extended what looked like a tractor beam, but instead of the crude gravitational fields the Kethmari were familiar with, this was something far more sophisticated. The Kethmari flagship found itself gently but irresistibly guided away from the research station. We went to sleep, hoping that the galaxy would grow up in our absence. Chen continued as the human fleet began herding the Kethmari ships toward the edge of human space. We hoped that other species would learn to solve their problems without violence, to share resources instead of fighting over them, to build something better than the galaxy we left behind. Thekris remained silent, knowing that anything he said would only make his situation worse. Instead, we find the same old patterns. The strong taking from the weak species enslaving other species. Wars fought over resources that could be shared. We're disappointed, War Commander. Very disappointed. The journey to the edge of human space took only minutes, though by conventional physics it should have taken days. The human ships seemed to fold space around themselves, moving through dimensions that Kethmari science couldn't even detect. Tell your leaders, Admiral Chen said as they reached the boundary markers, that the humans are awake now. We've seen what the galaxy has become in our absence, and we're not pleased. Changes are coming, War Commander. Whether those changes are peaceful or not depends on how quickly the galaxy learns to behave itself. The tractor beams released the Kethmari ships at the exact edge of human space. Their weapons came back online, their systems restored to full function. But Thekris made no attempt to turn around or resume his mission. One more thing, Chen added as the human ships began to fade from sensors, returning to whatever impossible stealth technology had hidden them before. Next time someone tells you not to wake the humans, War Commander, you might want to listen. The communication cut off, leaving Thekris alone with his thoughts and his humiliated crew. Around them, space looked exactly as it had before the encounter, but everything had changed. The galaxy's greatest predators were awake, and they were not happy with what they found. The Universal Congress had not held an emergency session in over 200 years. Representatives from every major species crowded into the Great Assembly Hall on Neutral Harmony Station, their various forms of panic, anger, and fear creating a cacophony that the translation systems struggled to process. The Kethmari delegation sat in isolation, their compound eyes reflecting the shame of their failed incursion, while other species demanded explanations. Ambassador Zextal, now elderly but still serving as the Zexian representative, raised his tentacles for silence. At 400 years old, he was one of the few beings present who remembered the galaxy before the Great Sleep. Fellow delegates, he said, his voice carrying the weight of centuries, we face a crisis not of war but of consequences. The Kethmari hegemony has awakened humanity from their voluntary stasis. For the first time in 300 years, human ships are moving through space, and human voices are speaking to the galaxy. The Altarian trade minister, her crystalline form chiming with agitation, interrupted. The humans returned the Kethmari fleet intact. Surely this indicates peaceful intentions. Peaceful? War Commander Thekris rose from his seat, his exoskeleton still bearing scorch marks from systems that had simply stopped working in the presence of human technology. They toyed with us like children playing with insects. Our most advanced weapons became paperweights. Our finest ships were herded like livestock. They demonstrated power beyond our comprehension and called it restraint. Murmurs rippled through the assembly. Every species present relied on technology that was, at best, pale imitations of human innovations left behind 3 centuries ago. If the sleeping giants had continued to advance during their slumber, then the technological gap had become an impossible chasm. What did they want? Asked the Gorlak representative, his species still traumatized by their own encounter with human technology 50 years earlier. Thekris's mandibles clicked nervously. Nothing. That was what made it terrifying. They wanted nothing from us except for us to leave them alone. The human admiral spoke as if our entire invasion was disappointing. Ambassador Zextal nodded gravely. That confirms our worst fears. The humans did not go to sleep because they were weak or tired. They went to sleep because they were disappointed in us, in all of us. The assembly fell silent as the implications sank in. For 3 centuries, galactic civilization had developed under the assumption that humanity's withdrawal was permanent. Trade routes, territorial boundaries, resource allocation agreements, everything had been built around the absence of the galaxy's former apex predator. Emergency. Communications are coming in from across the galaxy, reported the Congress's chief information officer, a multi-tentacled being whose species specialized in data processing. Human ships are appearing in systems that have been dormant for centuries. Not attacking, not invading, just observing. Observing what? The Altarian minister asked. Everything. Government facilities, military installations, trade agreements, resource extraction operations. They're conducting a comprehensive audit of galactic civilization. Ambassador Zextal felt his old heart sinking. He had feared this day would come, had warned in countless speeches that the galaxy's behavior during humanity's absence would be judged when they returned. Now that judgment was beginning. "We need to establish communication," declared the Centaurian peacekeeper, her flowing robes rippling with bioluminescent concern. "We must explain to the humans that galactic civilization has maintained peace in their absence." "Have we?" Thecris asked bluntly. "The Rigel corporate wars ended just 5 years ago. The Outer Rim slave markets operate openly. Half the species in this room have territorial disputes that flare into violence every few decades. What peace are we going to claim credit for?" Before anyone could answer, the main display screens around the assembly hall activated, showing the calm face of Admiral Sarah Chen. She looked exactly as humans were remembered from historical records. 2 eyes, soft skin, dark hair, but there was something different about her, and depth of understanding that seemed to look through the screen and into the souls of everyone watching. "Greetings. Universal Congress," she said, her voice carrying easily through the chamber's translation systems. "I am Admiral Sarah Chen, speaking on behalf of humanity. We apologize for interrupting your session, but recent events have made it necessary for us to address the galactic community." Ambassador Zextal struggled to find his voice. "Admiral Chen, the Congress wishes to welcome humanity back to active galactic participation. We hope that our species can resume the peaceful coexistence that existed before your voluntary withdrawal." "Peaceful coexistence," Chen repeated, and there was something like sadness in her expression. "Ambassador, we have been monitoring galactic affairs throughout our sleep. We are aware of the wars, the exploitation, the suffering that has continued in our absence. The question we face is whether the galaxy has truly learned anything from 3 centuries of peace, or whether you have simply been more careful about where you point your weapons." The Kethmari war commander shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "Admiral, the hegemony acted without Congress approval. Our actions do not represent the will of the galactic community." "And yet," Chen replied, "no species moved to stop you. No trade sanctions were imposed when your preparations became obvious. No diplomatic pressure was applied to change your course. The Congress was content to let you test our boundaries, hoping perhaps that you would succeed in proving us truly gone." The accusation hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Several delegates tried to speak at once, their voices creating a babel of denials and explanations. But Chen raised her hand for silence. "We are not angry," she said, and somehow that was more frightening than any threat would have been. Anger would imply that we expected better. Instead, we are simply disappointed. 300 years was apparently not enough time for the galaxy to mature. "What do you intend to do?" Ambassador Zextal asked, dreading the answer. "We intend to help," Chen said simply. "Over the next few standard months, you will notice certain changes. Weapons designed to harm sentient beings will find themselves mysteriously malfunctioning. Slave markets will discover that their restraint systems no longer function. Governments that exist primarily to exploit their citizens will find their corruption mechanisms failing." The assembly erupted in chaos. Representatives shouted questions, protests, and demands, but Chen continued speaking as if she couldn't hear them. "These changes are not punishments," she said. "They are corrections. We are implementing the peace that we hoped you would choose for yourselves. Consider it a gift from your sleeping neighbors. You cannot simply impose your will on the entire galaxy, shouted the Rigel corporate representative. We have sovereign rights, territorial integrity, legal frameworks. Chen's expression grew colder. You had 300 years to make those frameworks work for everyone, not just the powerful. You chose not to. Now we choose for you. This is tyranny, declared the hegemony's secondary commander. No, Chen replied. Tyranny would be conquering your worlds and ruling them directly. This is simply removing your ability to harm each other, while you hopefully learn better ways to coexist. Think of it as mandatory evolution. Ambassador Zextal found himself speaking before he realized it. How long will these corrections remain in place? Until you no longer need them, Chen said. We will continue to monitor galactic affairs from our position of quiet observation. When the galaxy demonstrates that it can maintain true peace without our intervention, we will withdraw these safeguards and return to our sleep. And if we resist these changes, the Altarian minister asked. Chen's smile was gentle but absolutely terrifying. You are welcome to try, but remember that these modifications represent the gentlest possible application of our capabilities. We could have chosen less subtle approaches. The transmission began to fade, but Chen's final words came through clearly. We came back hoping to find a galaxy that had grown beyond the need for supervision. Instead, we found children playing with weapons in their parents' absence. Until you demonstrate true maturity, we will be watching. Sleep well, delegates. We'll be here when you wake up. The screens went dark, leaving the assembly in stunned silence. Ambassador Zextal looked around at his fellow representatives. Seeing fear, anger, and something like shame in their faces, the galaxy's greatest power had returned, not as conquerors or destroyers, but as disappointed parents cleaning up after unruly children. I believe, he said quietly, that we have some growing up to do. Outside Harmony Station, invisible to all sensors and detection systems, human ships took up positions throughout the galaxy. They brought with them technology that would reshape the fundamental rules by which galactic civilization operated. Wars would become impossible. Exploitation would fail. Cruelty would find no tools to work with. The galaxy would learn to be peaceful, whether it wanted to or not. And in the depths of human space, Admiral Chen prepared to return to her stasis pod. The work was done, the corrections were in place, and there was nothing left but to wait and see if 300 years of forced peace would finally teach the galaxy what humanity had hoped it would learn on its own.